Hey, happy Monday, everyone. John Hansman here with the Business and Bytes podcast, and I have the pleasure of being here with my good friends Ryan and Emilio. How's the weather, gentlemen?
It's great.
My weather's actually, I was gonna say my weather's always great, but it hasn't been great this week. So yesterday was the beginning of hurricane season here, and the name, you know, the day and the name kind of came together, and it was a pretty bad storm.
Oh,
But
okay.
besides that, usually pretty good weather.
It's sunny and supposed to be 80 today here in the Washington State, up in the Pacific Northwest. So,
And I say it's great because it's raining here in the Southwest.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, Southwest needs it, right?
Yes.
So, well, hey, we're going to jump right in. So it's a couple of housekeeping things. So just so people know, we've got travel. I've got travel coming up. So that's why we're on a Monday instead of our Wednesday spot. And we just logistically have to try to make everything work. Next week, I'm going to be off the grid, like literally off the grid. So I have limited access to internet. Where I'm going has internet that seems, from what my understanding, is back to dial-up speeds. So there's no way we're streaming for while I'm at this camp, this church camp that I'm serving at. So we'll be back to our normal schedule the week of the 16th, but we wanted to get an episode out and just be able to just keep chatting and keep the conversation going about all these things that are happening in the world right now, because it is crazy. Here's what's blowing my mind about the world we live in literally right now. There's so much crazy, cool stuff happening. And then literally at the same time, there's so much crazy, like scary stuff happening all at the same time in the technology cybersecurity space. Like AI, I just saw the Gemini. Have you guys seen the Gemini demonstrations of what Google's doing with Gemini? I watched it this weekend again, and it was enough for me to be like, I might consider like looking at Google again, like Google Workspace again, because of just the stuff that Gemini can do. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I think I might be one of those guys who sits and plays around in like 3 different LLMs and like just plays with them, and then has one that I'm using for everything. But the stuff that it can do, like just do well, is like phenomenal. So I might just use it for certain things. I don't know. But
I haven't. So what you're speaking about, is this in terms of business? I haven't seen the business part of Gemini.
Oh yeah.
Or anything that ties to Google Workspace. What I
God.
have seen is, I think it was a commercial where a gentleman is like fixing or repairing a bike, and he has Gemini on, and Gemini's walking him through like the owner's manual, and he's like, "Well, if I gotta fix this," and then he says, "Look up the nearest bike shop, call them, and ask them for something." And the Gemini does it, and then the Gemini gives him the response from the conversation that she had with the bike shop.
Yeah.
So he never had to call the bike shop. Like that, I thought was impressive, but I haven't seen it used.
That's one thing.
In like
but
commercial.
There was like the content creation that Gemini can do now. They literally had a commercial that they built in Gemini. Now, I'm sure there was a little bit of editing to make it look good, because you do that for yourself, right? But the commercial was hysterical. I wish I could remember what the name of it was, so we could like share it in the show notes. I'll have to look for it. But it was hysterical, and it was well done. And so their video content creation, now you got to pay extra money for the content creation side. It was like $150 or $250 a month, but it was able to do like stuff that costs thousands of dollars if you hire somebody. Now, I'm not necessarily looking to put the local business who does video production out, but think about, like, I'm in the process of, I just launched this crazy thing called Cyber Babies on Instagram and all over the place.
That's so
cool.
You saw it, right?
I saw it.
I want to, it'd be cool to be able to do that a little faster and a little easier. And if you can find a product even for $250 that ups that game and makes it a lot better, then it may be worth it. And then the thing that they were talking about was, you could probably consolidate 3 tools that you buy separately into what this Google Workspace tool is doing. So There's a lot going on in the Google Gemini world. So it's just nuts. We live in this world where literally, which is scary at the same time. We live in this world where you can create video content that looks so flippin' real, like it's a real person with AI. That's crazy to me. It's also scary because AI is so good at impersonating people that we live in this world where now you have to be extra careful. And I think we're gonna talk a little bit about that this morning, but we're gonna start out with the most simple thing that's been going on for a while now, and emails. So email phishing. Now, I remember when I first started my business 7 years ago, what we used to tell people, just look for really bad spelling in emails. That's how you spot that it's a scam.
Or grammar.
And now criminals are using AI, so that's not a thing anymore. Like maybe a little bit, but the Prince of India has better spelling now.
No, so definitely. So I think employees are used to the type of conversations that they have with maybe their supervisor or their CEO, and they know how that person writes or how they communicate. And before, it'd be a instant, red flag if, they misspelled something or said something a type of way. But now, if somebody can take your CEO's email and feed them into their AI and say, now write a phishing email that sounds like it came from this CEO, imagine the types of confusion that employees would have when when that email hits their inbox.
Yeah, it's and because AI can now do deep research about companies and can get a lot of information that's out there, and then you can have it compile it into an email, which is crazy.
So, we're getting all these reports from clients, and they're forwarding these examples to us, and they're just looking so real and so real. Friday, I actually got an example hit my inbox, and I had to take a double look. I was like, wow. And then I started looking at it, and I started looking at the URLs that it comes in on, and there's ways to look at it, but the everyday user is, it's just getting harder and harder, and we're now starting to have to use AI to combat AI. It's just crazy.
What's another tactic, which I guess let me mention it now. I didn't think about this when we were throwing around suggestions and notes in the pre-show, guys, but I got one the other day, and they sent it to me. When you get an encrypted email and it says this email secure, but click on this link to access, and it came from an attorney here in South Florida that I have never dealt with, but it looked normal, right? It didn't look out of place. Besides the fact that I've never spoken to this gentleman, and that it was encrypted, in the secure, it says, click here to access secure email port or something like that.
That's right.
So what do? I go through my training, right? What's my training? Reach out on the phone, because it's an attorney. So what if it's something that, has to do with me and maybe a legal case or something like that? So I don't call the number on the email. So if you're watching this and you think an email is a scam and you want to verify by phone, you don't call the number on the email because they might be anticipating that. So I Google them, I find the number, and I call, and I ask for the attorney's name. The attorney answers, surprisingly enough, sometimes. And I say, hey, my name is Emilio Mejia from AM3 Technology and Cybersecurity. My call today is because I received an encrypted email from you, and it said something about like State Farm or something. And I just want to know if that's actually from you. And he goes, no, I've never sent you that email. And I go, okay, well, just introduce myself again. My name is Emilio. I'm the owner of, this is actually what we do. Coincidentally enough, I got an email from you. So I thought, my first response is to pick up the phone and verify. I want to let you know they're using your exact email domain. Like everything looks very, very legit. Yeah. So I would report this to your IT department. If you don't have one, I'd be more than glad to, sit on a call with you. Of course, I kind of threw my 2 cents in there, as any business owner should. But the point was the email looked extremely legit. There was nothing that I could pinpoint that would tell me I'm trying to be scammed, except for the fact that I didn't know who this person was and had never heard of them.
Right.
So they're out there, they're getting good. And if you don't know what to look for, or like that, how to follow up with someone, it's something that can turn into something catastrophic. I don't know what would have happened if I would have clicked on that, or what it was going to ask me for to obtain some of my information. But, gladly I was able to call them and verify that it was not done on purpose.
Yeah, I do that usually. And what I find a lot of times, depending on the size of the company, you get a lot of, oh, yeah, we're in the middle of that right now. Because if they're big enough, generally they're getting a lot of phone calls all at once, and it's a big deal. Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is like we had one of our other clients who has a government side to their organization that had their government side was getting phished, and so they had emails going out like, "Hey, we've got people in high authority being targeted, and they're doing like the shadow domain thing where they're literally creating a domain that's really close, so it's not the same, but it's like one letter off, and pretending that it's somebody of high authority to get them to do stuff. And so
domain impersonation.
Yeah, it's so nuts. I mean,
we're having to use tools to new tools. We actually just implemented 2 new tools to help us with this. And as fast as these tools get the capability, the AI is helping the cyber criminals just
totally.
And it's going so fast that the versions of all these scams are just they're coming out many times a week now, where it used to be one every 2 or 3 months of a new type of scan. Now we're talking about many times a week. I think we're going to get down to scams that morph and change themselves kind of like viruses by the second. And I think we're very close to that happening.
We don't generally dive into tools, but I will say that is one of the things I love about Iron Scales, and I know other products do it too. When it comes to like domain impersonation, for example, they'd have a red banner that pops up at the top of your emails if they've never emailed you before. So like if you, say domain impersonation, somebody, does one letter off from Truett, and then they try to send it to one of my team members. Of course, Microsoft puts if you set it up, it puts the outbound, it's from the outside. Yeah. But then the red banner also pops up and says, hey, this is not an email that emails you normally. And so you have the ability to just take a second look at those emails.
You need something to pop through your screen to say, don't do this, because they just skip all those banners.
Yeah. They've been successful. I've had a number of people say that the red banner, because it has made them look at the email again, the email address again. So
a lot of time people become numb to it though, and then they just, there's a red banner again, and I know that I've emailed this person, instead of actually looking. And I think that's some of the hurdles that my team's been running into. Like when the person's used to security, then and they see it again, it's just like, all right, that's just another security. But when it's a real one, then that's the one that gets through.
Yeah, exactly. So it's crazy. It's just nuts to me that we just live in this world where things are just expediting so fast. And now, literally, you said it earlier, AI is fighting AI. You've got good AI and bad AI. You've got the superhero and
we're going into a new world.
Yeah, we live in this new world where, like, literally, you've got cyber criminals using AI to try to fake people out, and then you have us using AI to find the AI to stop them from hurting people. It's so crazy. It's so fascinating and scary all at the same time. And
it is.
And just people aren't necessarily prepared. And I don't think that most small businesses, unless they've got somebody like us in their world, they're not actually training their employees to look for this stuff. They're not saying, hey, that red banner is really important. You should actually look at it. Or, hey, you should look at email addresses before you send confidential email, information out. Or be careful what you click on. And they're not actually doing training to help them identify these types of things. And I just don't, when I talk to people, I still get we'll just replace all our computers stuff that people say all the time, because they don't really, it's just more their way of saying they don't want to pay.
I had a client last week that literally said, well, they know what to ignore, what to delete, and what not to open. And literally not even 30 minutes later, we got a call from one of their staff that clicked on a phishing email. And so I picked up the phone and called the owner, and I said, hey, you know that conversation we just had? Well, and he goes, I know. When are we getting started on the training?
Yeah. But I've seen people who just even then don't, because they had, I had one that I worked on that literally half their staff failed their phishing test. Like literally half the staff failed. They had the protection was weak at best. We walked them through. They didn't like the price, because it's cybersecurity. They went to a local guy who charged them a quarter of what our price was and did nothing. Like literally. And then he said, well, they didn't want that crap, is what the MSP told me.
So before we segment away, I think a good test would be if you use GPT or whatever AI, flavor of the month it is that you're using, and make a realistic but fake phishing test coming from the owner of the company. So usually what we do when we test our clients is we'll send accounting emails from like Bank of America, this and that, and then you send out the logistics team emails from like FedEx or UPS. But what if you sent an email from the CEO of the company, mimicking him, and see if somebody can flag that? I think that's a pretty good
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. We generally tend to try and do a really good job with ours to make sure they fit the people that we're sending them to. So payroll gets payroll stuff, those types of things. So we have a pretty good rate when we're doing our tests because we're actually mimicking it. It'd be interesting to figure out how to do that so that because through the normal testing, it's hard to mimic those email addresses. But now we're getting really, really technical. So, but I think here's the overall point. The overall point is like there's a lot of people using AI, and it's not just making us more capable of doing a job. It's not just making, like we taught an AI class last week in Spokane, Washington. It's not just making small businesses better at what they do. It's making cyber criminals better at what they do as well. And so businesses have to up their game and take this stuff seriously and just make sure that they are like putting effort into this stuff and using the right tools and working with, I think they should be working with companies like ours because we've got the knowledge. Like we've been the ones who really worked hard. And we're going to talk about this later, but we've got stories of cyber attacks that we've stopped this last year. Like we've got real life things. So when somebody tells me, oh, I don't believe it, I think it's all hype, I'm like, okay, cool. Well, in my book of business, it's not been hype. I actually have stuff going on, right? So,
but let's save those for later. And I think something we should touch on is that, we always think of, if someone's going to get into my business and then I'm going to get fined or, I'm going to be responsible for some things. But sometimes you don't need a breach to get fined. So I want to pivot the conversation a little bit to PCI compliance for small businesses.
Yeah.
Ryan, I'll let you tee off this topic.
So, who's responsible for complying with the PCI compliance out there? Really, at the end of the day, it's everybody that takes a credit card, no matter if you're a 1-person operation or a 1 million person operation. If you take a credit card, you need to be PCI compliant. And there's a ton of requirements that go around that. And what does this do? It protects the cardholder data on the credit cards that we're using all day long. Just on Friday, I was at a restaurant that we were straightening out their network, and they had a person's full address, billing address, and everything, all their credit card details written on the wall. And I was like, wow, this is like really current of why you need to do this. And it was written on the wall, literally at their front counter. I almost fell over. So, what are we trying to protect on the credit cards? We're trying to protect the transmission of sending the data. We want to keep that network separate, and we want to be able to monitor what's going on there to make sure there's no surreptitious things going on. Mm-hmm. And PCI it gets overlooked by a lot of merchants, but I personally know of a business that fortunately we weren't doing work for, that had put out a $3 million a year liquor store here in New Mexico out of business. And it was pretty crazy because they didn't have the money to pay the fines, nor did they have the insurance to cover it.
Wow. That's crazy.
Usually under PC compliant, they give you like a quarterly or biannually test that you have to run. I'm not sure where it's at now. None of my clients are currently under PCI compliance, but when one was several years ago, before they changed the platform, how they take payments, um, we had to go to this website, and the website would have you download a tool. The tool would run certain tests on your network. And I remember they'd be like, oh, we might have to turn on VPN, or we might need to do this. And I'm like, why don't we just put the fix in place? You know?
Yeah.
Like, why don't we just do this so that when we run the test, like it automatically goes? And then now that we're in this new era of AI, I guess one of the questions is, how can AI help us be a little bit more compliant, right? If you have a business that maybe it's not just PCI, but maybe it's HIPAA, maybe it's ISO 12700 and all the rest of the numbers that they add on top of those, all the different compliance that we have. You guys have any suggestions on how the AI can be used for anything like that?
So most of the tools that we use, not getting into the weeds of the tools, almost every tool that we use has AI built into it. So it has predictive AI behavior. So it can kind of predict what's going to happen before people start doing it. And then it will shut it down very quickly to do that. And we're using AI to work with clients to do some simulations. So we're doing actual simulations in AI as like a training exercise, which takes about 5 minutes. We sit down with the staff at a client, and then we just walk through like an actual training simulation and have it Q&A people. And they're just like, their eyes get big like deer in a headlight, like, what am I doing wrong here? And but it just opens up their eyes and makes them understand that it's not just swiping a card or tapping a card, that there's a lot more that goes on in the background. So,
yeah. And I think businesses have to understand especially with PCI, where's all that data being stored? Like, a lot of people are using cloud. So some of that, to a certain extent, ends up resting in the cloud providers realm, which is kind of nice because it takes that off the business. But people still need to do due diligence with those providers to make sure they actually are doing the right things and protecting them. I think that's one of the things. But then if you've got a local, like there's some POS systems that they use servers in their local, you got to make sure that PCI compliant data is actually not stored, and it's set up correctly, and it's actually not visible in the in the local world there. There's a lot that goes into it, and I think that you just have to know which world you're living in. Are you living in the cloud world where you have another provider that's helping you, or do you have some compliance requirements for your infrastructure that's a little different from the cloud? Personally, I think the cloud's honestly the way to go. The only disadvantage is internet goes down and you're kind of hosed.
Yeah.
And
there's always.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Emilio.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So just watch. We have clients that take credit cards in person or over the phone, but then also they have a web component where they're taking cards through a different process. So a lot of times, we're really good with how we do things internally when people walk in or when people are on the phone. But we didn't even think about this website out here that we're selling. For instance, a dental office. We're selling toothpaste and toothbrushes and stuff like that online, and just had this happen about a month ago. The client never even told me they were selling anything online because they had a completely different website than their main domain. And I was like, wow, well, we got to make sure this is PCI compliant now. And it just came up in a conversation when I was going through and interviewing the client on what they're doing with PCI.
Yeah.
So.
I knew I was in the wrong business. Toothpaste and toothbrushes online sales. That's where it's at.
I'm wondering, it must be really
totally. I'm here trying to educate the world on AI and cybersecurity when I could be selling toothbrushes and toothpastes online.
Yeah.
Something else, and this can kind of, I'm gonna steer it towards cybersecurity, but other people can take the AI trickery behind it and do it something else. But imagine taking certain logs from some of your systems and then feeding them into AI and telling AI, hey, I want you to act as my chief compliance officer and tell me, if you see any red flags in these logs, or, just anything like that. You can steer that towards other industries and, and edit who you want reviewing something. But the fact is that you can have AI help you review something and be your second set of eyes with maybe, well, one, of course, it's a lot faster and a different level of expertise.
Right. It's gonna be interesting to see if AI can start doing actual like compliance checks on websites and stuff like that, where it can actually look for bugs and find if there's any.
I think
we're
really close.
We are too. I think
we're probably months away from that.
Yeah,
because through the deep research button, you can ask it to go to a website and do certain research, and if you give it the parameters on what to look for, it might be able to find. I've never thought of this until you just mentioned it right now. But if I ask AI and instruct it directly to look at certain headers, or to look at something in the URL, or to look at the certificate and look for something within the certificate, if I can kind of template that or pinpoint that out, then it can definitely tell me something. Remember,
it'd be interesting to create just oh man, now I'm nerding out on the things I'm going to do after this call. Like where you can go in and put all that stuff into a GPT, and then you literally just type the website address in there, and it does the scan for you.
Yeah, remember our colleague Amir, shout out to Blue Light IT out of here in South Florida as well. He has a system that checks the D mark and the DKIM. I don't know, it's almost like a spam filter, but he's making it run through the AI, and then he's making it give you a report.
Wow.
So as long as you know the parameters on what you want it to look for, it can do it. Sometimes we just haven't thought of feeding that to AI and what parameters.
This is the crazy part about the world we live in, right? It's not a matter of whether it can do it. It's a matter of whether we thought about whether it can do it.
That's exactly what the limitations of AI.
The limitations of AI is really us. Like that's
correct.
Also the scary part if you watch most sci-fi in the world.
Well, guys, what about some real world stories? I think we all have war stories, and we all like to sit around and tell stories. But John, Emilio, let's share some real stories with the viewers here.
When we've saved the day here and there.
Yeah. Well, I think we should start with the ones where we didn't, because and here's what I'll say. At least in mine, the ones where I didn't was generally because somebody said, I don't really need that. So I actually had a client, it was right before COVID it was actually right before COVID that I met them, because I remember going to they had like an after hours event, and then COVID happened like a month later, and I gave them a proposal, and they're like, oh, we don't need IT. We have Comcast. They've got their Power Edge or whatever the name of that product is that they say protects people. And they're like, so yeah, Comcast has this. And I was like, well, it doesn't, but they were told that it can protect them from cyber attacks. So they went about their business, and during the middle of COVID, they clicked on a link and got our whole business ransomed. And they were a company that had a lot of data that they were helping, scan for other businesses. I mean, it's a crazy thing. And later on down the road, we ended up having to bail them out because they said no. And that's just, we've had that. we've had ones that was in the process of discovery, who had a payroll scam, and literally we had just finished going through the results, and they had somebody change their banking information at the last minute. They ran their payroll like normal, and the money didn't go where it was supposed to. It went overseas instead. Those are a couple of examples that I've had to have the conversation with people later on down the road about where they've already lost money. And in both of those cases, it was because they just didn't have the right stuff. They weren't ready.
So, Brian, go ahead and go next, because I'm going to ruffle some feathers with mine, and I got a small hot take I want to do. So go ahead, and then I'll go last.
Okay, so we've had several clients that are now full monthly clients that we didn't have before. Over the last, I'd say 5-10 years, when ransomware really heated up about 10-12 years ago, even up till the end of last year, so November of 2024, we've had people call us, so can't get to anything, we can't. And these are not clients of ours at the time, and we go in and everything's ransomed. One in particular that sticks in my head, it was a real estate company building, a couple hundred townhouses every year, and pretty big business that this guy's running for the area that we're in. And he got his main computer hacked and he got ransomware on it. He called me. I think the ransom, this is going back in November, the ransom was like $48,000. I said, well, where's your insurance? And he looked at me, and I said, okay, well, now next step is where's your backups? I got another. and then I got to, do you have any old computers laying around you used to use for files? No, I threw that out last month. Like literally threw the computer out a month before. So I said, okay, well, you're going to either have to spend the money or we're going to have to try to rebuild all this data. And the client decided to spend the money. And he had about 20 computers on his network. He spent the money. He had all the data was on his computer, shared out. He spent the money and paid it, and somehow got some bonding that he had to pay for like a quarter of it. And because he said literally, I'm going to shut my doors if I can't get this data. And like, and this is a client that we never met before. He said, I will shut my doors and I cannot build a couple hundred townhouses a year without that data.
Right.
And now he's got, I swear the minute he presses any button on his keyboard, an alarm goes off.
Well, think about that. Like most people, again, I've said this many times, most people don't think about the fact that what's valuable in our computers is not the hardware. Hardware is cheap now.
Yeah.
Relatively, when you think about how much it cost back when computers were first coming out, hardware is relatively cheap, but it's the data that really costs the money. And you think about, and that goes across all businesses. Like if you think of even like a creative business, like a marketing firm. So a marketing firm, all what they have in their stuff besides proposals is intellectual property that they've built for clients.
Absolutely. I tell people your data, your client's data, and by your data, I mean intellectual property, and then of course everybody's finances.
And that was a low ransom. That was a low ransom that I've seen. I've seen ransoms upwards of over $500,000.
Yeah, but they're like Comcast. If you say you don't have the money, they'll lower the price.
They'll drop it.
Yeah. Like it's the funniest. I don't know if you ever called. If you ever talked to them, the one that ransomed that one company I mentioned earlier had a help desk chat line. And they literally, you get on with them and they're like, hi, how can I help you? We're here to assist you. I'm like, you're the one who caused this. Like they were like so polite. They were like the nicest hackers in the world. Why they negotiated down the price that it was going to cost. It went from like 60,000 to 20,000, 10,000. And, we sent all the evidence out, but it's nuts. I mean, like, they're literally just trying to get whatever they can. But most of these people they're set up like legitimate businesses, and they've got a whole team of people there to help you pay your ransom and make sure they get their money. It's not. I mean, it's crazy. It's
Emilio,
crazy.
What's this ringer? What's the ringer?
Yeah, so I'm gonna indirectly call people out and ruffle some feathers, right? So I'm gonna set this foundation, and then I'm gonna go into it. So recently, I encountered a situation where a company wired, a good amount of money, I think between 30 and 80,000 to somebody. And it's because they got an email and the email to them was completely legit. And to be fair, it was because the other person had been hacked and then, requested that the next payment to change the wire information. Now, while this person didn't pick up the phone and verify verbally, that this information was changed, that is their fault, to the fault of the vendor that sent the invoice, they were hacked. So why aren't people holding other people accountable? Your supply chain. Why aren't you telling people that you do business with, hey, how are you protecting your systems? If I'm protecting mine, why aren't you protecting yours, right? If you're working with a CPA, are they protected? No, then, that's a checkbox that needs to be checked. Go to another accountant that, is protecting your data. Like if you're dealing with a marketing firm, a PR firm, just anybody in general, I don't want to call out certain industries because supply chain could be a lot of industries, but your lawyer, your PR, your marketing, your accountant, anything that you outsource for your company that holds your sensitive data or that you do a lot of business with, why aren't you holding them accountable for protecting their systems?
Right.
Just like somebody would hold you accountable for not protecting yours, right? I think I see this way too many times. And, something happens and then, okay, let's just brush it off. Let's hope it never happens again. No, can you show me that within the next 60 to 90 days, your business is going to do something to now protect, so that this incident doesn't happen again? I think we need to start holding people more accountable.
Yeah.
Us as business, not even us as IT cybersecurity personnel, but us as business owners, other business owners need to start holding their supply chain accountable for protecting the business and the chain that business goes around in. What do you guys think about that?
We've seen this happen twice, Emilio. One time at a vet clinic, their X-ray machine got ransomed and got a ransomware because we weren't allowed to touch their X-ray system. It was on their network, but we weren't allowed to touch it. Got ransomed, and then it turned around and infected a couple computers on their network. This is 10 years ago, and it was in our contract that was an exception to what we were doing for them. And then we had this happen in a doctor's office that had like an outsourced MRI system in their office, and the MRI system got ransomed. And fortunately, it was only isolated to the MRI system in that case. But in those cases, since they're regulated systems, we're not allowed to touch them. And
we had a similar thing with a grocery store where the grocery store provided all the networking gear. And they did, the POS company provide all the networking gear for them, segregated their network into like a staff network and a PII network. And they never kept the switch up to date or the firewall
firmware. Yeah.
Up to date. And there was known vulnerabilities about it. So the customer called the POS company, and then they said, well, we only updated it if there's a problem. But that was number one, their response. Number two, when he said, well, this has infected my network with my machines on it, they said, well, that's on we won't help you with anything except for on the PII side, even though their firewall was actually what got compromised. So somebody compromised the firewall through that loophole from that vulnerability and got somehow to their other side. And they were just like, nah, not our problem. And I'm like, dude, you're the one who provided the firewall and didn't update it. Like, that goes back to vendors.
Council, really quick, you have Skylar Tanner. Thank you for commenting on the conversation right now. He just asked, do they not have their medical equipment? Do they not have proper VLAN set up? I'm not sure if you just touched on that. And then he asked about the hacker help desk, the one with the chat bot or the live chat. He said, are they actually helpful? I'm sure they're helpful for trying to get their money, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
I'm not sure about anything else, but I'm sure they're helpful trying to get their money. But if you want to talk about the proper VLAN setup, I guess.
Yes. Thank you, Skylar. Yes, we did have VLAN set up in this case, but they had to have one little hole poked in the VLAN over to their main server, so all the radiology records would pop on the server, and just all somehow and it was just a dump. It was just a file dump of just images, and somehow they got through. The software caught it and stopped it on the server. Wow. But it totally hosed and trashed the radiology server. The files did make it onto the server because that was the only way for this vet technology software to work. Nowadays, the new technologies that they have in place, there's a lot of filters. There's like a dump box, and then it jumps over to here, and then it has like 3 stops before it hits.
Well, and that's why we're doing zero trust these days rather than just VLANs.
And that's exactly
that's the reason why we do specific rules to say only specific profiles or specific computers can talk to this specific part of a server and actually segregate that stuff out so that it's not based on VLANs or networking on the firewall side, but it's literally based on profile. And usually what we're doing is on it's the user level. This person, this profile, this person. So like we have within one of our tools, we have a CEO profile, we have an accounting profile, we have a
is that micro segmentation?
Yeah, that's through like Citricom does that. So
yeah, micro segmentation. Yeah, I love that.
So then you basically just say, okay, great. So the CEO can get to these, these things that he needs, and it may not be everything. Payroll, accounting, HR, they get to the parts of the server that they need. And yeah, literally, Mike, because at the end of the day, like you can just block out imposters.
Yeah.
Imposters get nothing.
Yeah, it's almost like very granular individual firewall rules at the endpoint level. Yeah, I agree with you. My SASE product also has micro segmentation, and I think it's a very nice feature.
I think it's the way to go, especially if you have a high PII risk or you're in a server environment.
Our clients are struggling with us implementing it. They're just like, well, why? We have access to everything. That's how we've always worked. And it's, but that's not how the cyber criminals have always
worked.
No,
it's a matter of you get access to what you need. And the reality is you don't need access to everything.
Yeah. The accounting people don't need access to the marketing information.
Right. Exactly.
And vice versa.
All right, guys, we're coming up on time. So why don't we give a quick story where we did save the day? Some cyber hero stories. Let's close out the day with a couple cyber hero stories. What do you guys got for me?
I think most of what we've seen has been business email compromises this last year. And when you look at FBI statistics, that makes sense. It was a $3 billion attack, $3 billion worth of business payouts that people had to pay for. It's by far the biggest of the FBI numbers. We stopped 6 in 2024.
Would you agree with me that the reason that's the highest targeted way to get in is because it's the one that has the most human interaction and the tools spot it the least amount?
And there's two parts to it. Now you think about business email compromises, criminals are realizing they can actually get more if they get access to email than if they ransom. Yeah. So think about, like, if you get access to email, you get access to two-factor in a lot of cases. You get access to banking. You get access to, if you can get good rules in there. And most customers who don't have any protection, someone can go back and create rules, and they'd never know. Yeah, so in our cases, we've had 6 amongst different customers. And in all of the cases, our response time to get them out was under 10 minutes. Like, we're like literally... in one case, it was less than that. And by the time my guys picked up the ticket, the automated process had already shut off the account. And we were already, able to give them a phone call, reset everything. And we were able to do an investigation, and literally no data taken because they didn't have time. Like, literally by the time they got logged in, they were out.
Yeah, I had about, we're seeing about 2 to 3 a month between email compromises. One was a supply chain compromise and it stopped it. Within 2 minutes, it stopped a supply chain compromise back in November, actually 2 days before Thanksgiving. It had got a compromise, and then the internet went out. And I think the internet is what really saved this client. But our software was able to turn it off before the internet went out. And then we had to physically go take a look at it. But I had one happen actually last week, and this is kind of funny. So we stopped it within like 30 seconds. The SOC caught it within a business email compromise. So I said to the client, I said, can I set up a shadow domain? I just want to screw with this cyber criminal for a little bit. So I set up a shadow domain, and I started playing with the cyber criminal, and I had him 10 times since Tuesday. I got him. I nailed him. And at the end, his last email to me, my last email to him was, go get a real job. His last email to me is, why don't you hire me? And it was just funny that I just shadow domain myself because I just really wanted to see how far I could take it. And it made me chuckle when he would say, why don't you hire me? But I didn't even respond to that. I ended it there. But stopping these with the tools we have nowadays, stopping these things in 5 minutes is so critical and it's the difference between losing hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars and not losing any dollars.
It's funny. We always say, go get a real job. And then we're like, I'm sorry, I can't hire you.
So, and it was just a funny one though. I had to do it. I had to do it last week.
All right, guys, that puts us at our about 45 minutes target, Mark? Any closing remarks?
No, I think it's really just a matter of we just have to be diligent. And I think that's the thing we're going to keep saying over and over and over again. And I think, we have to take these things seriously. Like people who say, oh, well, I'm just going to go buy all new computers, or or this stuff's not really happening. It's all hype. Like we just heard in a roundtable of people that we're all smaller businesses and we all are seeing activity, and we're actually seeing real cases of this happening. And it's easy to see like this is like a real thing. This isn't like, it's not hype. We're literally seeing where we stopped events that could have put businesses out of business.
And when the hair on the back of your neck goes up,
yeah,
listen to it. It's doing it for a reason.
100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take it seriously. It's for real.
Okay, all right, guys. That wraps us up for today. Just some notes. I think we are. John, I'll let you take this one.
What are we? Well, I know. Okay, so I guess do we go back to housekeeping? So
housekeeping. Yeah, so
housekeeping. So again, we'll be one more week. Next week we won't have a show.
June 18th is our next show.
Yeah, June 18th will be our next event. If you have questions or you run across this, throw something in the chat, or the post a comment, and we'll look at those, and we're happy to cover that topic on our show. Like that's one of the things that helps us. Like part of what we can talk all day about the things we're seeing, but one of the hearts behind what we do here at Business Sims Bytes is really help the business owner navigate this world and help them come up with real world solutions, not just, and we're going to get into this, not just for cybersecurity, but how to make your business profitable. And using technology is not just a security thing. It can be a growth-minded tool using AI and other tools in a good way. So we're going to be talking about some of those things, but no show next week, and then we'll be back. And then I look forward to talking about camp, I guess, after I get back. But
recharge those batteries, John.
Recharge, yeah, exactly. So, if you guys have questions, send us a message, and we look forward to seeing all you guys next week for 2 weeks.
Skylar, sometimes they are the best pen testers, but sometimes you can't trust those guys.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Yeah. So awesome. Thanks for participating online, and we look forward to seeing all you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Good show.